My first memories of Stormgate's initial campaign, released in August of 2024, were of disappointment. Plagued by Mary Sue's laughable villains and Timu versions of my favorite RTS missions, Stormgate's initial campaign was a generous 2 out of 10. So imagine my surprise when Frost Giant Studios announced that the newest version of Stormgate's first campaign, Ashes of Earth, will be releasing on August 5th. Is it worth buying? I got curious and decided to look at the current 0.5.1 campaign as a measuring stick. Has the campaign improved since August of 2024? If so, by how much? And after looking at it, here's what I think. Since it's my first time rating a game on YouTube, I'll give you my 0 to 10 scale so we're on the same page. The perfect 10 is a game worthy of being called art, one that you suggest to dedicated non gamers to show the greatness of the medium. There are very, very few of these. A 9 is a bit more common and is a game that transcends its genre and has appeal outside of its typical audience. In contrast, a 7 is a well executed highlight of its genre that stands above its competitors but doesn't contend with the truly great. 5 is average. Fives can be consistently lukewarm or have flaws that offset their unique charms. They're the passable, the okay. A 3 is the worst game from which you can still get value. These games are for the studying designers or appeal as guilty pleasures. A 1 is trash, whether it's buggy, incomplete, an outright scam, or creatively bankrupt. These are less like games and more like the stinking trash you have to hurry to take out. And as for zeros, well, they're as rare as tens for the opposite reason. So let's get back to the current Stormgate campaign. This review will be broken down into 4 categories: world building, characters, mission structure, and difficulty. I'll score each portion individually and sum everything up at the end. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Part 1: World Building. World building is the process of creating a fictional universe in which plots and characters can live. It's the bedrock of the gameplay experience. World building refers to the history of the universe, how tightly the separate creative elements cohere together, and whether the constructed reality breaks my willing suspension of disbelief. Stormgate starts with the tired idea of hell invading Earth and sprinkles in some nuance. The infernal host isn't attacking out of some predetermined hatred for humanity, but for the valuable animus that fills the planet. Rather than make a valiant last stand, humanity has already lost Earth and must reclaim it from space. The sci fi technologies that diverge from our own didn't arise from super geniuses or the return of magic, but instead came from pre invasion attempts to avert human caused crises that the Stormgates just made worse. While the ideas are excellent and the narrative consistency is above average, the delivery of this information comes off as ham fisted. Dialogue trades opportunities for subtlety or implication with exposition dumps. The most interesting part of the world building is a codex that gives hints as to the histories of Trip, the Vanguard, and Sigma efforts. This codex doesn't change the poor delivery, but does give me confidence that there's more narrative space for the world and the characters to explore. Overall, I give the current world building a 7 out of 10. The codex's depth leaves me expecting more, but the dialogue as written shows more creative ambition than ability. Part 2: Characters. This section will be done rapidly to make sure I get everybody without the video becoming an hour long. I will also skip underexplored characters such as Admiral Moore or Wars. So let's start off with Blockade. Blockade is the commanding officer of the Warhawks, Amara's father figure, and the emotional pillar of the campaign. We get subtle hints that when push comes to shove, he'll protect Amara over fulfilling his Warhawk duties, and this is proof that a bare bones character can get the job done. 6 out of 10 for the death flagged character. Amara. The fitting end for Amara in the initial campaign would have been for her to die due to her recklessness and bloodlust, but as a textbook Mary Sue, she was incapable of being wrong. The current Amara is a real character, faced with less certainty, higher stakes, and isn't being coddled by the
What
hand
can
of
I
the
do for
author.
you?
She banters with Riker, has real
Well,
chemistry with Su Yin,
and
and as a nice touch, her initial abilities suggest her personality and narrative arc. 6 of 10 for the reformed Mary Sue. Terra. Terra is a walking exposition dump whose official position is xenoarchaeologist. Her role in the story is to let us know the Infernals have been here before and that nobody believed her dad. In fact, she talks so much about her dad that it's hard to believe the writer has ever heard of the Bechdel test. There's not even a suggestion that Terra will unwind if something happens to her family or that she'll have any meaningful character arc at all. Talking to this bot is a chore. 3 of 10 for the cardboard cutout. Riker. Riker was the best character in the initial campaign, and his change to California based hair products hasn't mussed his attitude. He's argumentative, capable, and enhances Amara's character. His primary flaw is that living on a post apocalyptic Earth has taught him to quit when the odds are stacked against him. Nevertheless, 7 of 10 for the Dog Whisperer. Trip. Trip is a robotic intelligence who fulfills a similar role to Terra as an exposition dump. The once human being's gimmick is that he's emotionally insensitive and continues when others would let matters drop. My Doyleist perspective makes me smile and shake my head, but a Watsonian view makes everything he does awkward. Still, humor is humor, and he is tolerable even if he occasionally drops character. 5 of 10 for Trip GPT. Taggart. Taggart is a reminder that the Big Bang Theory ruined a generation of writers when it came to awkwardly intelligent guys. He's a copy-paste of Stetman from StarCraft II's Wings of Liberty campaign, with occasional Gendo Ikari frames to let us know he's going to betray everybody in the future. His interactions with Amara are cringe-inducing, and I actively despise the stereotypes that he reinforces. Unironic 1 of 10 for the worst character in the campaign. Really, it would be better to remove him entirely. Su Yin. Su Yin's a breath of fresh air. Despite being introduced as a damsel in distress, last of her kind human popsicle in Sigma Polar, her traumatic experiences in the labs feel both genuine and consequential. It makes sense that she works to the bone to help the Vanguard as payment for her survival, and also as an implied coping mechanism for lacking the information the Vanguard needed when they got to Sigma Polar in the first place. She also just gives better upgrades than Terra, so 7 of 10 for the survivor. Malik. Malik is infected with the same writing disease that plagues every Blizzard villain since Heart of the Swarm and Diablo 3. They're never allowed to win. Malik proclaims that you'll fail, says your struggle is futile when you start making progress, and gnashes his teeth when you succeed. It's hard to feel any contest with him matters because the outcome feels predetermined. Old Blizzard games were stronger for having villain protagonists, rendering player victories inconsequential, or posing legitimate threats through gameplay difficulty. Malik is a case study, not a character. Classic Blizzard 3 of 10. Now that's 38 points for 8 characters, leaving us with a 4.75 of 10 score. But the characters you'll interact with the most are Blockade, Amara, and Riker, who are undoubtedly some of the strongest in the cast. If we only use their scores, we get a score of 6.33 out of 10 for characters. Part 3. Mission Structure. Mission structure refers to the activities players are expected to perform to beat missions. This is separate from the difficulty, which is the level of challenge in accomplishing those goals. As an example, activate 6 portals around the map is a mission structure. Stating, well, I can beat it in 2 minutes, concerns the difficulty. Now that we're clear, let's get into the mission structure. There are 6 missions in the current human campaign. The first of these is Ghost of the Past, an installation mission where we break into Sigma Polar to search for the key. Installation missions are a clever introduction to unit controls for an RTS, and the conceit of breaking in from the outside has good narrative flow and pacing. Where Ghost of the Past falls flat is in its escape sequence. Your travel path out of the facility is both time-sensitive and unclear, which in addition to being frustrating can lead to your premature death. 5 out of 10. City of Skulls has us finding a base, getting it operational, and destroying an infernal artifact. The map is short, the objectives are clear, there are obvious midway checkpoints for progression, and this mission structure is well aligned to being the second mission in the campaign. The simplicity of City of Skulls prevents it from being great, it might even be called bare bones, but the restraint serves a greater purpose. The addition of maps, items, and doodads also serves it well. Easy 6 out of 10. Ashen Bone, the third mission, is our introduction to Riker. We escort a transport and defend it against infernal attacks as the transport uploads satellite links across the map. As a more experienced RTS player, I dislike auto-scrollers and timing-restricted missions. It's challenging to separate missions like this from their difficulty. If the attack paths are predictable or don't threaten your economy, you're left deathballing every unit on the objective until the timer runs out. I personally give it a 4 of 10, but I completely understand if newer players would rate this at a 6 out of 10 or even higher. It's just that the novelty of this kind of mission has worn out on me over the decades. Grim Company makes me grimace. It's mission 4 and we're attacking multiple Infernal bases to destroy another monolith, but after several minutes the Infernals start launching weapons that destroy your own bases. There's no way to stop these Infernal attacks other than beating the mission faster, and the Infernals don't ever attack your bases with traditional forces. I'm gonna complain about difficulty scaling later, but this is more demoralizing than difficult. I mean, after all, the map has too many resources for failure to be an option, and the cannon's secondary objective is a timely waste of resources. An unironic 2 out of 10. Veiled Fate has us defending Amara after she's trapped in a central temple. I've already stated my dislike for this type of defense mission, but after the timer runs down, the mission takes a fun turn. 3 celestial entities manifest around the map and send attack waves towards Amara until you defeat them. Then, once they're destroyed, an invincible Malak sends enraged infernal attack waves back towards the center of the temple and comes to threaten your army with widespread continuous AoE damage. This small inclusion of forcing the player to be proactive, especially after minutes of defensive inactivity, surprised me when I first saw it and earned this mission a lot of goodwill. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. And once again, I think people less familiar with RTS or who don't have my problems with these types of missions can reasonably give it an 8 out of 10. Trader's Bay is the 6th, final, and most solid mission. We use Gravens to infiltrate and steal a base, building our own forces and saving prisoners until we can defeat 3 Havoc bases. This mission is our first fight against enemies using Vanguard units, and is a welcome change from killing the infinite hordes of brutes, gaunts, and magmadons. The biggest problem with Trader's Bay from a design perspective is that the mission gets easier the longer we play. It ends with a boss battle in which we can only control the underlevel Blockade and Riker heroes, and while boss battles are a good way to wrap up missions, it's missing some punch when we're playing without Amara and can't use the army we just spent the last 15 to 20 minutes building and sweeping across the map. Still, there's much more good than bad, and the scale is satisfying, especially for a final mission. 7 out of 10. With 30 total points, I give the mission structures a 5 out of 10. If, however, you didn't have my problems with familiarity of RTS campaigns, a dislike of auto-scrollers, or a tired, miserable acceptance of defense missions, read this as a 5.67 out of 10. Part 4. Difficulty. To quote the Electric Underground, difficulty is content. Games with low difficulty are completed faster, have less replayability, and tend to repulse invested players. Games with higher difficulty, in contrast, attract attention for their challenge, take longer to beat, and are more replayable at the cost of having lower initial fan bases. Many games use multiplayer or self-imposed challenges such as Steam achievements or speedrunning to give additional difficulty to games for this exact reason. Unfortunately, Stormgate's campaign is just far too easy. I played the campaign on Brutal with a variety of self-imposed challenges such as playing without items, limiting which units I could build, refusing to buy any upgrades, and all of this failed to make Stormgate's campaign exciting. I'm not saying this as a StarCraft 2 semi-pro, an A-rank player in Brood War, or even a Grand Master in any other game, but as a one-time StarCraft 2 Masters player repeatedly stuck in Diamond, the top 10% of the population, but not even close to the top 1 or 5%. The current campaign lacks Steam achievements or other incentives to play more rigorously, with the most interesting challenge being a community-driven effort to practice speedrunning. And while it's a romp around the playground with self-imposed challenges on the hardest difficulty setting, I just don't know what skill level the game would have to be in order for my opinion on the difficulty itself to change. What I can say is that Stormgate's campaign is a lesson in why difficulty matters and reinforces that difficulty is in fact content. I give the difficulty a 3 out of 10. Part 5. Summary. Combining each of the 4 categories with equal weight gives us 2 scores, one generous and the other pessimistic. The generous total is 5.5 out of 10, while the pessimistic one is 4.9375 out of 10. As a reminder, I consider 5 out of 10 to be average, and 7 out of 10 to be a good game, noteworthy within its genre, but not exceeding the bounds of its genre. Whether you think the current campaign is worth its price depends on your personal finances, region-adjusted pricing, your gaming backlog, and other such factors. However, am looking forward to August 5th to see if Stormgate's new Ashes of Creation campaign is an improvement. Given that the initial campaign was a 2 out of 10 and the current campaign averages around 5 out of 10, I'm cautiously optimistic. Thank you for sticking to the end. If you like this style of scripted content or enjoy listening to me talk about games, like the video and subscribe so I know to create more. And I'll see you in the next one.